Alright, I apologize if this is starting to sound maybe kind of like an infomercial or promotion, and I don't know. I'm just want to kind of highlight some facts about these artists, and later on I kind of do another round and share some more of my thoughts about what I actually thought about some of this stuff. So yeah, this is Nugglife. It's Ian Zabrowski and Zachary Hirsch. They do clothing, custom vinyl collectibles, and commission work. A lot of it is like cannabis and art themed. They had some really cool dunnies, which are like those anthropomorphic rabbits crossed with like weed plants. But Ian does really cool stuff. I saw them in New York Comic Con last year, and I really loved his work. This is Martian Toys. They're based out of Philly. They're huge. They're pretty instrumental in making designer toys really popular. They're not too far from me, from DC. The team was very much this guy, Brian, Kevin, and Aaron. Brian left the company. He's out in LA doing his thing out in Cali. But yeah, they do in-house sculpts. They host gallery shows. A lot of custom artists use them to highlight and do auctions, do platforms, display their works. They're very cool. It's a very cool store out in Philly. If you're in the area, check it out. This is Super 7. They're founded by Brian Flynn. They're based out of San Francisco. They got action figures, collectible toys, apparel. You see stuff from WWE, Godzilla, Peanuts, TMNT, even those goofy Tromaville movies. Yeah, I remember that Romeo and Juliet movie. I remember the first time I saw that. I couldn't believe someone made that film. It looked like someone just like, I don't know. You could definitely tell that was a project of love. It's just so ridiculous. The stuff that's come out of Troma, like Toxic Avenger. But anyway, yeah, Super 7 does like cool tongue-in-cheek action figures. They have like their own sort of sculpt of like this mummy figure that's kind of adorable and cute. I dig their stuff. They had a big giant Linus figure next to that Charlie Brown, and I'm a huge Peanuts fan, and I did get that. This Daniel Johnson guy, he had some cool art. I saw he was being promoted by 5 Points Fest. His figure, this frog alien-like figure, reminded me of Rick and Morty a bit. This is From Beyond FX. They're based out of Richmond, Virginia, and this guy was very cool. Yeah, he was pointing at my camera, and like we were sort of talking about. He was mentioning some sort of very cool 3D camera that didn't really use any motor design, and you could it took like 360-degree video, and you could kind of like move it around, or when you played back the video, the person playing it could kind of take a look at what they wanted to see. But yeah, this guy was very cool. He looked like one of the guys that should be surfing with Brody in Point Break and robbing banks and jumping out of airplanes in his free time. But yeah, this is a very cool guy. I love horror themed stuff, especially Western horror. I used to have, I guess I still do have a lot of love for the slasher films from back in the day, sort of satirizing and lampooning teenage promiscuity and that kind of stuff. This is really an art form that goes into making a slasher film. But nowadays I like a lot more, I guess, psychological horror. And psychological horror is great. One day I'm going to try to make it to one of those horror conventions like Monster Palooza or Son of Monster Palooza. What's that guy? Oh yeah, Angry Video Game Nerd. I think his company's name is Cinemassacre. He loves horror. I used to watch like his horror countdowns. They were really cool. If I ever see him at a convention up in Philly, I think he's based out of that area. I'd love to meet that guy. That guy, he's very inspiring. He sort of created a movie. He leveraged all of his sort of hard work and passion into making a kind of a cool movie. There's like a lot of raw charm to like that guy and like the work that he does, and his AVGN character is pretty iconic for their time. I love watching his videos. This is My Plastic Heart. Quicks is here signing his stuff. A lot of cool imported toys. There's Quick with his little his beanie hat, and he's signing a lot of his Quicks toys here. I'm turning around, look at him. Very, very nice, down to earth guy. He's so huge in the Philippines. I saw the Philippines had like this toy convention, this toy con convention, and someone posted like video of like the line to wait to get things signed from him. And at 3 a.m. that line was so deep. People were like in a stairwell somewhere, so far back. This is Ron English's stuff. He's got that propaganda line. He's got those grin figures. They've even done those sort of grin figures with the teeth, like almost like a skull popping out of the head, with the Street Fighter IP. Yeah, and they had an example of those Mega Man ones. That's kind of cool. Those Pulp Fiction figures right there. And coming up here, I spent a lot of time talking to James Groman. James Groman is pretty iconic. He's worked on everything. Going back way early in his career, he's worked on the Care Bears animation. He's made toys like Mad Balls. This is his Alien Chrome figure. This was really, really, really nice. And then that sort of dissected Triceratops. He does like a lot of cool monster stuff, and he does Cthulhu. And Rick Stromeyer had that painted version of his figure, but he's like worked on, a lot of stuff. He worked with Weta on The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. He worked with DC Comics on Batman figures. He's worked on a lot of animation. His stuff reminds me of that stop motion stuff that's really timeless. It just holds up to this day, like stuff Ray Harryhausen did with Clash of the Titans, King Kong's, those King Kong black and white movies. But yeah, like a lot of artists have done like cool mods and paints on his work. Yeah, one thing about My Plastic Heart, they get like a lot of more imported toys from Asia, and they hosted that dumpster fire show. There's this artist called 100 Soft, and he does like a lot of cool these sort of adorable designs. Yeah, this was Kaiju Stevens. He had like this Onigiri Hellcat Final Form figure, that little pink thing with the cat with its eyes, sort of reminiscent of that Pan's Labyrinth figure. It just reminded me of like Del Toro and like crossed with some Hindu mythology or Hindu deity stuff. And he was like talking to me about that. And next to it was this Rangeron baby dragon figure. I really dug the colors that he used on those pieces. And in the corner over here, you'll see in a minute, he had like a Iron Giant figure. And that was really, really well done. Almost like a sort of monument after it collapsed. I love anime and manga that has like emotional resonance, like Grave of the Fireflies, Iron Giant, Abyss, Into the Abyss. That's some really, really great stuff. This was the Plastic Pizza. They had really cute, adorable pizza prints. I was just leafing through them over and over. I hung around the booth so much, the guy at the end of the show like just gave me like a packet of cool stickers for free. Unfortunately, I think while they were packing up, they had like their money stolen, which was terrible. But this is a pretty tight-knit community. One of the artists got wind of it. He's a pretty famous artist. His moniker is Hot Actor, this guy Carlos. And he's one of those designers of those ramen figures you might have seen at a couple of those boots with like the ramen bowls on a human type figure. But he kind of got everybody together for like this sort of auction charity event to help Plastic Pizza recover those funds that were stolen. This community is very cool. That's one thing I do sort of like, if you're just walking around and talking to people, you get to know people and you kind of get to know like how bonded and supportive these people are. Like I feel like there's some communities where people are super competitive, but in a lot of these indie art communities, you see people that are very supportive and encouraging and mentoring of each other, and a lot of the empathy, I guess, really sort of comes out. So this area was sort of more of like a indie, like fly-by-night, I guess this would kind of be like the artist alley area of the show. And you'll find some really cool gems here, and a lot of people taking way more chances with art around here. Yeah, there's like there were some cool prints here. This booth was visually very very nice to look at. I thought it was one of the best design booths. It reminded me of the Philips Hue lights that I have at home. Yeah, but I like these sort of chibi prints. It's one of those industrial fans. In the corner here was an area to sit. I talked to some cool people, and they had really good food in the corner there, and a bar. The food there was by a vendor called Terry and Yaki, and they had very, very good teriyaki food, like vegan and meat. Yeah, it was pretty good. And at the bar, they had some of the craft beer cans with really interesting art from some of the artists that were doing graffiti artwork, and some of like their uniquely designed art just for this show was on limited release craft beers. That was kind of cool. Yeah, I love some of these action figures. They're really cleverly well done, and some of them are satirical. Some of them are like lesser known figures. For example, I have one of if you ever saw that movie Weird Science, where Bill Paxton, Chet, the older bully brother, gets turned into that toad-like creature. I just have like a figure of like that toad-like creature, and like the packaging for that is so funny and ridiculous. Another one that I have is from the famous movie RoboCop. The guy who gets hit by toxic chemicals and starts melting, and at some point in a shocking action sequence, he's hit by like a police car, and the guy just explodes like a balloon of gore. But that slimed melting guy, I have like an action figure of that. There's a lot of creativity and cult fun to be had with some of those action figures and designs. This guy coming up here, it's kind of hard to see that little gray thing, that snack rabbit. Yeah, I like that. It reminded me of the weird cartoons you would see on Adult Swim, or going back in the day of MTV's Liquid TV, where you'd see like a cartoon like Aeon Flux or Beavis and Butthead or something by George Plimpton, and then all of a sudden you would just see very avant-garde animation. But that snack rabbit, that obese rabbit with the derpy face, it looked pretty cool. Yeah. This is Sten Nilsson. He's based out of Brooklyn. He does like automation and humanity. They had some really cool art. Red Guardian, he's based out of New York City too. He's been doing this for at least 4 years. This Quentin Lefebvre Art. He had a really cool Joker there. He's based out of France. He started this J. Kennett Toy Studio. He has some really cool figures based on... I saw like some in the past. Just looking him up, he had a figure based on Mars Attacks. It was called Marcelin's Truth. I guess maybe it was based on Marilyn Monroe, because one of the Attack on Mars figures was dressed like Marilyn Manson. He had a Pennyworth's Famous Hamburgers resin figure, which was like the clown from It, Pennywise. Famous Hamburgers, PWs. That was really cool. It was like Pennywise advertising hamburgers. In an interview, he said he was in Spain once with his girlfriend